Hi, how you doing? Hope you're keeping well. So I've had some questions in about standing, and also the subject of stances has come up a couple of times recently as well, in class and online. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with stances, then we'll look at a couple of exercises that use standing. So if you look at YouTube clips, instructional clips of martial arts, it's not uncommon to see people take up very specific stances, and I sometimes feel sorry for the assistant, because you get the instructor can be talking for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, and poor Brian, he stood here like this waiting for the word to go all the time. Now obviously if you're going into a boxing match, it makes perfect sense to adopt a boxing stance, or whatever match it is. So a stance can be very useful in a specific situation. The problem comes when people try and apply a specific stance to a more general area of practice. And I just want to say this is not a sports versus street thing, because so-called street people do this as well. And what's the street anyway? Where is this street? Who's in it? What's happening? There's so many factors at play. I once on a street forum, someone said, yeah, I train for when it kicks off in the chip shop, and I asked him, why don't you just go to another chip shop, and I never really got an answer, but that's another issue. So back to our stances. I saw recently a high level BJJ person saying our art is great for the street, because when you're in the street, so you've got the guy in your guard, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, if it's kicking out time at Ilford Palais and I'm a doorman and we're getting people out, that's our job, and something happens, if I'm in guard, then something's already gone quite wrong, because I'm on the floor. So let's rewind back a few steps and start dealing with that situation as it happens. And of course there's many ways to do that: verbal, body language, all sorts of things, before we even get to physical techniques or solutions. So in that case, because it's a style specific stance, that's his thing. You work from the guard or you work on top. For boxers we work one way, everything else. The problem is when we adopt a specific stance, it's as though we're expecting a specific attack. If I know that all my attacker is going to do is try and punch me in the head, then you know this can make sense. If he's going to go for my legs, then this is not such a good thing. So there's two problems here. The first is that if we train in very specific stances, then that gives us an expectation that people are going to attack us in a very specific way. And of course, as we know in life, which is what we train for, not street, not sports, but life, people can come at you all sorts of different ways. Almost anything can happen. The next thing is, now if we restrict ourselves to certain shapes, certain stances, certain patterns, we often restrict ourselves to certain responses and certain types of movement as well. One thing you'll notice a lot in Systema is people tend to remain more open than closed up. And this is because we use a lot more movement as our defence, rather than trying to protect. Again, this is all context specific. It may be that at some point you need to protect the head. The point is, that doesn't mean that every situation I get in, someone shunts my car and I jump out and go, what do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? Okay, it will obviously be silly to do that. So we want this open stance and open posture in order that we can respond quickly in any direction we need to, and that includes up and down as well. Same on the floor. I once heard advice that if you're on the floor against a few attackers, you should curl yourself up into fetal position and you'll probably be alright. To my mind, that just makes you a target. You're much better off opening yourself up, and then if you can, start working against the other people. Maybe that you grab one and use him as a shield, or whatever it is. Again, that's a specific situation, but you can train in that through setting up that sort of scenario in your class and with your partners, once we can all get back to normal training, of course. So we have to recognise that unlike training clip, we can't tell our partner how to stand, we can't tell him what to do, and we can't tell him how to do it. So it makes sense in that situation to adopt a stance, if you like, that gives you as many options as possible. It may be that brings the hands up, it may be you work more with the hands down. Again, it's all about context. So you need to be prepared to work from any of these positions. How do we do that? Well, the answer is movement. So in Systema, we don't train for stances, we train for movement. So you can get yourself in any position and you can feel, can you punch from this position? Can you kick? Can you drop? Can you turn? Can you move? If I lock myself up, am I restricting my movement? Am I making my attacker's job easier if by closing up like this, if the person pushes here, then he's got kind of control. If I'm opened out a little bit, if he pushes here, well, I can spin off around that and maybe do something about it. So your general training in Systema should be about developing your attributes, your ability to move, your psychology, your ability to deliver strikes and take strikes and everything else. You're looking to develop that rather than these kind of very specific answers to an imagined situation. Because this is the other issue as well. There's an imaginary thing of how some sort of imaginary fight is going to go down. If I get jumped by 3 muggers, well, they do this and I do this, and so on and so on. Quite often, in fact almost always, the reality and our imagination never quite match up. Now, that's not to say that you can't and shouldn't test yourself out. So yeah, by all means, once you've developed your attributes, then you can work into certain scenarios or certain situations at whatever level of intensity is appropriate, and you can start to test yourself out a little bit. So you can have your partners apply more pressure, you can work faster, you can work in a car or in certain conditions, you can set up little scenarios, but you're doing so as a means to test your reaction and your attributes to that situation, not to test a very particular stance. Again, if I'm sitting in a car and something happens, you know, I can't go to the ground. I probably can't even throw very good punches from some perspectives. But if I've got movement and the ability to deliver strikes through that movement, then I've got something that I can use. So the second question that came in was specifically about standing practices. As you know, I had a long background in Chinese internal styles before coming into the system, and someone asked, do the standing practices that they do in the Chinese arts, is there any use or function for those from the Systema perspective? You may have seen now in Chinese styles they do a lot of standing work, whether it's what they call standing pose, zhangzhuang, which is for structure, it's for energy development, or a lot of styles do stance work as well, which is to strengthen the legs, strengthen the general posture, and of course to work the willpower as well. So we used to have to hold these positions for anything from sort of 15 minutes up to an hour. So is any of that useful in Systema, or is there any equivalent in Systema? Well, yes, there is. We tend to use squats, of course, and similar exercises to strengthen the legs, because that's more about mobility. Although of course you can hold a squat, you can do very slow squats and everything else. But here's a couple of specific Systema standing exercises, that's not easy to say, you can use, and all you need is a wall. So the first exercise, I bring my feet about a foot or so away from the wall, comfortable width, comfortable position, toes pointing forward. My back is against the wall and I'm trying to keep contact from the head all the way down the spine to the hips. So the shoulders, everything else is flat against the wall. So this exercise is about posture and structure, but it's also about relaxation within that. I have to find that relaxation within this structure. I don't want to be locked in and tense. I need to be able to move out of it very easily as well. So from here, check that the knees are in line with the toes. Never point the toes in. I can point out a little, and you slide down. So you want to get to where your sort of thighs are about parallel to the floor, and you see already I'm starting to lean forward a little bit. I'm kind of leaning into the plane. Instead, we maintain that straight back, and now of course the thigh muscles are beginning to tense. So and I hold that position. Your hands you can do anything with, you can cross their arms, you can read the paper, whatever you want to do. Or you can think, from here, have I got freedom of movement of the hands and the shoulders? Can I hit from here? Can I grab? And you just hold that for as long as you want. Now to get out, you can either drop down, or if your legs are aching a little bit, you can use the shoulders to walk yourself back up. Second exercise is similar, but this time I'm facing the wall. So I'm bringing my feet close to the wall, my hands are flat against the wall, the knees, the chest, everything touching the wall, and from here again I just squat down a little. So again I'm keeping that spine nice and straight, the shoulders are relaxed, and the spine also is mobile. I should be able to move from here. Once again, we're not locked into position. Palms just rest on the wall, and I breathe. Again, I can just hold this, or I can do this as a squat exercise, all the way up and down. So 2 standing exercises for your Systema. Hopefully you got used to the wall somewhere. Both of these personally really helped with my knees. A lot of that earlier stance training I did left some damage in my knees, but this type of method where we work slowly and hold and we really check alignment and tension, I found really sorted that problem out for me. So as usual, any questions, any comments, put them below or drop me a mail. Take care.